You've got 10 minutes before Mr Kernahan comes on.
10 minutes?
I'm going to wind you up because I know you can talk. I know you can talk.
Hi, everybody. Okay, we're here today for democracy, and what democracy is meant to be all about, and we all know this, is the election of candidates or representatives by the free will of an informed electorate. And we aren't bloody getting it, and we all know that, don't we? Yeah. Now, democracy, for a few years there, was getting a bit smelly. It was laying in the gutter. It was concerned. It was hoping that we, the people, would pick it up, and we didn't. And now democracy's dead. And I want to explain what that means to you all, because we've just heard the things we could do to change democracy, but at the moment we don't have that. What we have is a system that is written by the very people that it benefits, to benefit them and make it hard for us to initiate change. So when we go and vote this year, and when your friends and your family and those people you know go and vote this year, we have to make sure that we do the best job we can. And I'd like to explain some of the loopholes. When electoral law is written, it was written years ago, back in 1917, okay? And back then it was written so that we could go in, if we were so inspired to vote, we could cast an informed vote and we could preference only those players that we liked. And that was a good system. And it elected some damn good people many, many years ago. But that system's been changed. The reason it's been changed is the people that write electoral law are those people in there from the Labor and Liberal Party. So when they write law, they write it to benefit themselves, not to benefit you people. Now, there's a thing called the Joint Standing Committee on Electoral Matters, and that's a board that goes around each year after election, talks to the people and says, what do you want? And it comes back and it comes back like 20 years ago. It said, we'd like optional preferential voting. We don't want to have to preference Labor if we don't like them. We don't want to have to preference Liberal if we don't like them, okay? So it came back and it said that. But the government makes the final choice, and they said, no, we can't have that. We need your vote. Because what happens with preferential voting is that when you go and vote, you have to preference every player. But the counting of the votes is two-party preferred. No one here would like to prefer the two parties most of the time, would we? No. So I started studying this about 12 years ago, and I've been in and out of the High Court and the Court of Disputed Returns to address a myriad of issues that are horrific. What they now do is they send out postal ballot applications now it's become in the hundreds of thousands. This next federal election will be in the millions. And those, when you fill that in thinking, I'll stay home, I won't worry about going to the polling booth, I'll fill in a postal ballot application. Where does that postal ballot application go? Does it go to the Electoral Commission? No, it does not. It gets handled by the two major parties. Start to think about this. Because what the major parties started doing, they started losing power, because they weren't representing anymore, so they started losing. So they thought, how can we cheat the system? So what they started doing is dressing up as other parties. I'm sure you've heard of this, and giving out dodgy how to vote information at polling booths. Now, this sort of stuff is being done by people that dare claim the title of honourable, right, which is a disgrace. Not only do they do that, but what they started doing was also putting other biases in the law, where that not only can they handle the ballot papers, but they can also be involved in the distribution of those votes as well. And I'll explain how that happens. But what I'll do, because I've got 10 minutes only, is I'd like to just expose to you what the Labor and Liberal Party have just passed, because you're about to go to an election where you'd like to get rid of those that you don't like. You'd like to go in and vote in a informed manner. Well, they've just changed the whole entire electoral system in Australia 2 weeks ago. Now, have you heard about that? No. Because you're not meant to know. And I'd like to tell you some of those things. First of all, they wanted to reduce opposition. So what they're doing is they're deregistering all the minor players. Any minor political party, any independent, at this stage that's not got a representative in Parliament will be deregistered. So you'll have less choices. To re-register, for someone like me to register now, I have to have 100 names of nominations, which I'll get 2 days to get. I have to pay $1,000, not $500, okay, as an independent. And for a small party, that becomes $2,000 per player. Now you think about those costs for someone that's self-funded, not funded by the government money. Then what they needed to do was find more uninformed voters, okay, more uninformed voters. Now to do that, what they're going to do is they've just changed the whole entire Electoral Act and taken the word elector out of it. And they've replaced it with the word person. All right? Now, that might not mean anything to you, but what they're going to do is they've also changed the Taxation Act and the Motor Registration Act. And they're going to go through and collate all the names from all of those acts from all of those databases and enrol them compulsory. Now, what you've got to understand there is that some of those people don't have a right to vote. If you're new to this country, you don't have a right to vote until you're an Australian citizen, right? A very important issue. They're going to compulsory enrol 1.5 million people a few weeks out of the next federal election without telling them. Now, what do you think that 1.5 million votes is going to go? Do you have any idea? Well, they're not telling anybody. So they are doing this because they want to intercept more votes. And what they've also changed is the postal voting system. Now, in my last state election, I'm from South Australia, 26,000 ballot papers went missing at the state election. The state Labor Party won by 1,200. Now, do the figures, do the sums. Where did those ballot papers go? Guess who handled the ballot paper applications? The Labor Party. So we live in a democracy, and we're here to fight for democracy, but we don't even bloody have it anymore. Now, not only are they going to make it easier to invalidate, if a box, right, if you've got an area and they know that a certain amount of people will vote Labor, and that polling box has got a mark on it, they're going to chuck it in the bin. So tens of thousands of people's votes are not going to count this next election. That is the other way they're going to do it. Now what they're going to do also is that when you go in for a pre-polling vote, if you decide to vote 2 weeks before the election or a few days before the election, you have to go in and show evidence of who you are. All right, that's the law. You have to sign an application to do it. No more. You can just go in and go, I'm Mark Aldridge, I'd like to vote, and cast your vote. They won't know how many people multiple vote. In the last state election in South Australia, it was something like 1,600 multiple votes to one person. So, yeah, 30,000, well actually 370,000 has just been released. 370,000 votes that were cast for who we don't know weren't valid, all right? Now, to cover their tracks, they've changed the electoral system, the word people versus elector. Now, please understand what that means. If Labor won by a minority or Liberal won by a minority, and they found out some of that minority shouldn't have been enrolled to vote, and they go to the Electoral Act to say, hang on, their vote shouldn't count, it won't matter because it says people. It doesn't say elector. So they have just undermined the constitutional protections that we have. They've undermined the common law rights of elections that we usually have, and they have rigged and destroyed anything that we would hold fit as being electoral law in this country. And no one is telling you. So you have to go out and start questioning this. And just so you know, I was in the High Court and I proved an election was rigged, okay? 3 months of my life, a lot of money it costed me, and I nearly lost my house over it. Let me tell you the outcome. The High Court deemed that a general election cannot be deemed invalid regardless of the conduct or the count of the votes. So if they rig an election and we can prove it, there's nothing we can damn well do. Now that is not democracy, that is bullshit, and not one of us should put up with it. So when you go to vote this year and you talk to your friends and they say, oh, I don't normally vote, I'm not enrolled anymore, well they are now, and if they're going to have to be forced to vote, let's make sure they go in, get their name ticked off, and damn well do the best job they can of voting for the people in their electorate based on who they are, because we are not voting for Gillard, we are not voting for the people in this house, we're voting for local people in our area. So do the best damn well job you can and stand up and say this is not democracy and we won't take it. Thank you.